Um, this is a taped interview with Al Ferguson.
That's my son, I'm George Ferguson.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I've been calling you Al all morning.
Okay. That's my middle name.
Okay. With George Ferguson, and he is a class of 1956 at Oak Ridge and the class of 1960 out of the Citadel. And it is the 12th of December, 2011. We are situated in the Archives and Museum at Oak Ridge Military Academy. And George, let me start by asking you your background, where you're from originally, and take me through it, if you would, how you got to Oak Ridge.
All right. I was born in a place called Leakesville, North Carolina, which is now Eden, in May of 1938. My dad was a military man. He was in the National Guard. He was in World War I, World War II, in Korea, as a call-up. He was not full-time all those times, and he was a veterinarian. So I got a dose of the military from him. And of course, in World War II, all my uncles were in the military and all that. So I was always determined to be in the military. About my 9th grade year in civilian high school, my dad agreed to let me come to Oak Ridge Military Academy. Our family didn't have a lot of money, but he felt that he could afford for me to come over here as a boarding student. And so in the 10th grade, I came to Oak Ridge, and was in the dormitory that's straight across from here. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of it. Whitaker Hall.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Whitaker Hall. Rose to the esteemed rank of, I think I was a sergeant when I finished here, cadet sergeant. But I enjoyed the military. I think I made my parents very happy. I was not the most sterling student here, but I wasn't the bottom of the class either. But I loved the military. I really enjoyed that. So when I finished here, I briefly went to Wake Forest. Did not care for the civilian university system, so I went to the Citadel and finished there in 3 years. So I graduated in 1960, went into the regular Army. I spent a tour in Korea, came back to the States, was assigned to 7th Special Forces Group, spent 2 tours in Vietnam in Special Forces. Then the Army career people convinced me to get out of Special Forces. I better go back into the regular infantry if I ever wanted to get promoted past major. So I did a 3rd tour as a rifle company commander in Vietnam. You may remember him. Remember Colonel or General Red Ryder from the Citadel, Commandant?
Sure.
He brought a brigade over, and at the time I was in Vietnam already, and I went down to see him and I said, I'd like to have a rifle company. And he said, well, I've just got 2 guys who refused a rifle company. I'll trade those 2 to your headquarters and you come down here. And I did, and I commanded a company for about 9 months. Came back to the States and served in various military assignments. I was in Germany. I spent 2 tours in Alaska. And then I retired in 1980. In 1981, I saw an opening for a history teacher at Oak Ridge Military Academy. By then it changed from institute to academy. And I came over here and applied for the job, and in a couple of weeks they called me and said, you still want the job? And I said, certainly. So I was hired here as a history teacher. I had a master's degree from James Madison University in history. So I came here originally as a history teacher, and then they invited me to be the associate dean So I taught history all morning and deaned all afternoon, and stayed here until Christmas of 1989, in which case I had an offer at Rockingham Community College to become the law enforcement coordinator for the school. So I left here then, went to Rockingham Community College, went through what is known as BLET, the basic law enforcement training, became a reserve officer in Eden, and later at the Sheriff's Department. And for 20 years I ran the recruit academy for Rockingham County, and retired in what the heck is this year? I retired in 2009, and enjoy retirement.
Okay. Let me pick your brain on some details.
Sure.
What did you enjoy most? When you came here after the 9th grade, where did you go to high school? Civilian school.
It was James Moorhead High School in Eden, North Carolina.
Okay.
Where my mother was a teacher.
Oh.
That was also one of the reasons I wanted to leave there. Not that she didn't teach me, and she was an excellent teacher and beloved by the school, but I just wanted to get away from, I want to get it on my own.
Yeah.
My kids are.
Sure, exactly. And so you came here. What company were you in?
D Company.
You were in D Company. All right. You were living on Whitaker.
Whitaker.
Okay. And what do you remember about those years? Anything that pings your memory?
First thing I always think about when I think about Oak Ridge is the mess hall that was in Benbow Hall, and learning to eat something called lick.
Yeah.
Lick was hero syrup on bread.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That was sort of what you had. If you didn't get enough of everything else, you could always have some lick.
Was it called lick when we were here? I can't remember. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I was thinking it was called something else. But
Well,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Try to call it food.
No.
some of the other things I really enjoyed about the school, I was on the drill team, and I was a skinny little old guy. I think the M1 weighed pretty much what I did, but I learned how to manipulate an M1 rifle in all sorts of ways, and I loved doing that. And we would go to ball games, parades, lots of social functions, and the drill team would put on a show, and I always liked that. And whenever possible, my dad, who by that time was a retired Air Force colonel, would come over and watch. He always got a big kick out of that too.
Did they call it the Gold Star Platoon back in those days?
I believe they did. I believe it was called the Gold Star Platoon. I was on the rifle team, and we had a range under part of what is now the gym, or what was then the gym. And I enjoyed shooting rifles, and still enjoy firearms very much. My second year here, when they made me a corporal, it was the first leadership training and position I'd ever had. And I took it so seriously, it's hard, looking back on it, it's hard to believe I did that. But I was very, very serious about that. And finally, about 2 months or 3 months into the school year, one of the new recruits, one of the new cadets, said, "Don't you ever smile?" And I realized then that I was so intent on being the best corporal possible that I had probably gone a little bit overboard. But I thoroughly enjoyed that. I was trying to think Captain Casey taught history. Taught chemistry. I can't remember any of my other professors.
Holt.
Holt, yes, yeah. Colonel Holt was here. T.O. Wright was the president.
Mhm.
His son was here, I believe, about that time.
Was he? How about Stuart Chandler? Was he here?
Yes, he certainly, he's Commandant Cadets.
Yeah.
He was. I really never got an excessive amount of demerits
Mm.
because I was so intent on trying to do a good job. And Oak Ridge laid the foundation for whatever leadership skills I developed through my life. It really laid a good foundation. And later in the military, I was the guy who they would come to and said, this company is in trouble, there are problems, you're the new company commander. I commanded 5 different companies while in the Army, which is extremely unusual. You're lucky to get one.
Yeah.
But for the reasons that I think, I started learning here, and then the Citadel polished that off. I enjoyed leadership. I have tried to teach my sons some of the leadership skills I learned here, and one of my sons is a graduate of Oak Ridge Military Academy. In fact, he was the assistant battalion commander, the XO.
Yeah, the XO.
And so, and they've done extremely well. So I think Oak Ridge was the best thing that happened to me to make me the kind of man I am today. And
Certainly a life-changing event.
it was,
Yeah.
very much so. And in the 40s and 50s, and at least in my hometown, you were not a rebel or anything, and I wasn't a troublemaker or anything like that. In fact, people would ask my mother, I didn't know your son was in trouble, why'd you send him to military school?
Yeah.
And she said he wasn't, he wanted to go.
Yeah.
But neither was I in any kind of leadership position. I was not a star athlete. I was not a exceptional student. I was not a social butterfly, so there were no leadership places for me in the civilian world at that time. And so when coming to Oak Ridge, I found where I found my home in the military. And Oak Ridge is primarily responsible for me doing whatever I did in the military.
Okay. Let's, all right, you graduated in 1956?
That's correct.
Okay. Take us through your bout over at Wake Forest and how you ended up at the Citadel.
I applied for the Citadel when I graduated from here, but I have a bad left eye, and I could not pass the commissioning physical.
Yeah.
So the Citadel did not accept me. So, sort of as a last resort, and I don't mean that in a bad, negative way, but last resort for me. At the last minute, my parents were able to get me into Wake Forest University. And I was not a sterling student there either.
Did you go into the ROTC program?
I did. In fact, I also joined the reserves, the U.S. Army Reserves.
Mm-hmm.
And this was probably the last year before they sent you off to basic training first.
Yeah.
Before you could join the reserves. This time you joined the reserves and went to basic training later. I went down there the summer of '57 to Fort Jackson as a private in a maintenance company. And turned out that the first sergeant of my company had been a corporal in my dad's company in World War II.
Is that right?
And I think my dad called him up and said, I want you to make a man out of my son.
Oh, boy.
Or
Yeah.
Oak Ridge got me into trouble there because we were doing close order drill, and I told the first sergeant, this is wrong. The new field manual says that.
Yeah.
So I stayed on KP quite a lot, cleaning out the grease traps and doing things I didn't want to do. I then reapplied for the Citadel,
Uh-huh.
and was accepted because I was a member of the Army at that time.
Okay.
And I went down to Citadel in the fall of '67 and graduated in '69.
You mean 57?
57 and
Yeah.
graduated in 1960. I'll get it right in a minute.
Right.
And you're right. And so
Did you had to go through the plebe system, I assume?
I did.
Uh-huh.
I did. I was a
Knob like you.
knob like everybody else. I went from being a knob to being a junior.
Well, that's not bad.
No, it wasn't. Wasn't bad at all. They made me a sergeant and brought me back for the 2-week pre-training of the knobs.
Yeah.
And I like the Citadel also. I mean, I enjoyed being there. I like Charleston. In fact,
Oh, yeah.
my wife and I have taken about 5 honeymoons in Charleston because we like
Sure.
the city a lot. And of course, I was very happy at the Citadel.
So you were in Delta Company in 1st Battalion?
Right.
Okay. And after your knob year, you went into the junior class,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
Now, your ring has a 60 on it, right?
It does.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I got out of the habit of wearing the ring when I was in airborne units, and I've never picked it back up.
Yeah.
I've got it sitting on my dresser,
Yeah.
but I've just never gone back to wearing the ring.
I understand. All right, anything that you recall? I assume that Oak Ridge sort of smoothed the way for you a little bit in the as a knob at the Citadel.
It did. I already knew close order drill.
Yeah.
I already knew how to spit shine my shoes. I already knew how to look sharp,
How to clean your rifle.
clean my rifle. And in those days, like at Oak Ridge, we kept our rifles in our room.
Mhm.
When I was here, we kept our M1s racked in your room. They didn't have firing pins.
Yeah.
And the same thing at the Citadel. So I was very familiar with the M1. I didn't have any trouble going through knob training at all. I may have gotten picked on a little bit because I did know what I was doing
Mhm.
when most of everybody else were civilian.
Mhm.
There were a few veterans in there and a few other military school graduates, but I bet 10% of the Corps. I bet we were not 10% of the Corps.
Yeah.
And so I really did enjoy the Citadel.
Mhm.
And graduated in 1960, and General Westmoreland
Mhm.
was our graduation speaker. And my parents knew the Westmoreland family, so he pinned on one of my second lieutenant bars, and my dad pinned on the other.
Yep. Indeed.
And I ran into him twice or maybe 3 times in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And he didn't know me, but
Yeah.
we would speak.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sure. Now, Mark Clark came to the Citadel about that time frame, didn't he?
Mark Clark was the president when I was there,
Okay.
and he lived downtown in a hotel,
In the Francis Marion.
Francis Marion Hotel. I think he had like the top floor.
He
or
did,
something.
yeah, the whole top floor, yeah, absolutely. You know, he's buried on campus.
I didn't know that. I did
Yeah,
not know
he's
that.
buried there by the Caroline between between the chapel and Mark Clark Hall.
Okay.
But, okay, getting back to it, you graduated in 1960 and were commissioned. You took a regular commission?
I did.
Okay. And what was your first assignment? Well, obviously you had to go to school, but
I was assigned to 101st Airborne Division.
really? What?
501st.
501st. Oh, okay. I got a story I want to tell you about.
And of course, I reported in those days, you reported in before you went to basic school.
Yeah.
And I reported in as green a second lieutenant as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
And my company commander was an old Mustang. He'd come up through the ranks of OCS. He didn't have any use for military academy second lieutenants. So I had the night duty officer job. I had to go into the company 3 times during the night at 6, 12, and 6 a.m. and see that everything was Okay, the very first night, I went in at 12 o'clock, in the barracks in the 101st Airborne were
You're talking about Fort Campbell?
Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Yeah, okay.
They were new barracks in those days, but they were platoon bays. They were not individual rooms. And they had a spiral staircase, much like the ones at the Citadel. And I walked in the door, and I heard, "Ah, blam!" And I looked around, and a guy was laying on the floor there. Well, I didn't know what the hell to do. I said to the CQ, "Call an ambulance. He's got at least got one broken leg because it looks funny." And then I called my company commander, and he came in. And later, the story, I don't know whether it was true or not, but later the story I heard is they caught him as a barracks thief and threw him over the top floor railing, the 3-story building. Again, I don't know if that's true or not, but that was the story I was told. And so I stayed with the 101st until I went off to Fort Benning, Officer's Basic Course. From there I was assigned to the 32nd Infantry in Korea. I volunteered for that because I wanted to go where the last war was fought to see what I wanted to learn all I could about tactical military operations. And I was a platoon leader and then a company exec while in Korea.
Now, when did you go? That would have been about, what, 1961?
61, and I came back. It was a 13-month tour, but we got extended because of a Berlin crisis, so I came back in the summer of 62 by troop ship. It was awful. I don't sail well, so I vomited from Busan to Hawaii, or to San Francisco. I looked like a Dachau graduate when I got off that ship, because I really don't sail well. While in Korea, Special Forces started hitting the news, and the war in Vietnam became more newsworthy. So I volunteered upon leaving Korea to go to Special Forces. And in those days, regular officers didn't do that. Special Forces was looked down on by the regular establishment. But I'm young and stupid, so I said, I want to be in Special Forces. So I went to Fort Bragg, went through the Special Forces Officers course, was assigned as XO of an A-team, and we were dispatched to Laos, but we only stayed there 2 weeks because they assigned the accords, I think they were called the Geneva Accords. Kennedy signed them, and we came right back out of Laos. Supposedly all the communists left, but of course they didn't. Then I was assigned, as an XO, to another Special Forces A-team, and we went for a tour at a place called Doc Peck.
Where was that?
That was in the Highlands.
Second Corps?
Yeah, 2nd Corps, north of Khartoum.
Okay.
In fact, the road ended there.
Oh, okay.
It's that far north. Any further north than that, and the road had been demolished by the Viet Cong.
Was it a A-team fort with
Mountain
with
York.
your yards? Which ones? Rod A's?
Rod A's. I'm an official member of the Rod A tribe.
Are you?
I am. I still have my bracelet,
Yeah.
which turns your arm green.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
I spent a while there. I
How
learned
long
2
was-
things there.
How long was your tour? Sorry.
We were only there 6 months.
Okay.
We were sent TDY from the 7th Group.
Okay.
I learned 2 things. First, we were actually working for the CIA at that time, and they had a potpourri of weapons. So I got to carry a Thompson submachine gun. I wanted to be just like John Wayne. Well, we went out on a 7-day patrol, and the first thing I learned was the Thompson is heavy and awkward. When I got back, traded my Thompson in for an M2 carbine.
Yeah.
Quick. I learned you don't run up down Thompsons, or run up down the jungle hills of Vietnam with a Thompson very easily. And John Wayne might have, but George Ferguson wasn't. And
that was, all right, you were TDY out of 7th group
Right.
at that point.
yes.
Now, your training at Fort Bragg on the officers course, was that the standard 6-month deal?
They hustled us up. I think we finished in 4 months.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because they were needing some of these teams to go.
Yeah.
Right now.
Mhm.
And they didn't have enough. Didn't have enough officers.
Officers, yeah.
I think that's why they let me go, even though I was a regular officer. Because
Right.
I was one of the few regular officers in our whole C team, is what they call the battalion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of Citadel boys in special forces in those days.
Were they?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, some of the founding fathers were.
I actually had about 3 classmates that were there.
Really?
Yeah. They, as far as I know, they all made it through. I'm drawing a blank on some names right this minute, but I did have 3 classmates who were in special forces by the time I was. And a guy named Dave Eady, who was a year in front of me, he was a 59 graduate. He had gotten there before I did, and he sort of mentored me for the
Right.
first little bit of special forces.
Did you know Terry Cordell?
I just knew him. I did not.
He wasn't a buddy.
He wasn't a buddy of mine or anything. And who was the lieutenant who was captured and got away after 5 years?
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you a story about that.
We were in the same group that went over.
Yeah.
Because he was in a different A team.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah, you know, he was killed later in the Philippines.
yes, he
Yeah,
was assassinated.
Yeah.
After he ran SEER for all those years.
Right.
I can't.
All right, I can't think of his name either. It was a West Pointer, though.
Yeah, he was.
Uh,
And we went down after his camp was overrun, we and about 1,000 other people,
yeah.
looking for him. Of course, never
Yeah,
found him.
yeah,
And then he escaped and got picked up. And,
right.
God,
He spent some time as a PW. I don't think they got him to the north, though.
no, he was in
Yeah.
South. He was
Yeah.
in South Vietnam when he got away.
Yeah.
I want to say it was 5 years, but that may have been 3.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was a long
Long time.
15 minutes would be a long time to be a PW.
Yeah, yeah.
PW.
Oh, God, his name's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember. Well,
Yeah.
senior moment.
Yeah. I had a lot of those.
Yeah. All right, so you were TDY for 6 months
Yeah.
with 7th group,
Yeah.
and then you went back. Where was 7th group based? Were they at Bragg?
Bragg.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you went back to Bragg.
Right.
And what happened next?
Well, I'd only been at Bragg about a month when I got called up to Special Forces headquarters and said, "You ready to go back to Vietnam?" I'm not even a member of a regular team yet. They said, "No, you're going as an individual replacement." The executive officer of a team that was stationed at Khe Sanh, which was then a Special Forces camp, not a Marine base,
Yeah.
has disappeared. No, he's been relieved. That's what the XO was relieved, and we're sending you over there. So off I went. But before I got there, the team leader disappeared. He was in an L-19 that crashed on the other side of
The line.
the line.
Yeah. Over all across the Sapone River.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And of course, he was a prisoner forever.
Yeah.
But he lived and came and got out. The pilot of the L-19, nobody ever found again.
No kidding.
I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah.
So anyway, I walked in and became instantly a team leader.
An A-team.
Of an A-team. And that's when we were planning to move down to the new Special Forces camp. Marines were just beginning to come in.
All right.
And so we were
The
going to
new
move.
camp outside the wire.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, I know. Hey, all right.
And
I was an FOB. Yeah.
we were going to move our actual camp down and went and reconned and blew a bunch of trees down and all.
Oh, okay.
But about that time, my tour was up, because I was there again only 6 months to finish out this other guy's tour.
I see.
And
You didn't have buffer teams in those days that they just picked you off?
I wasn't familiar with that term, so
Okay.
I guess not. I went back to Bragg in the spring of '64 and got orders to the advanced course, career course I think they called it then, of the armor school. And I went up to infantry branch and I said, "What are you doing to me? I can't even spell tank. I don't know anything about maintenance."
Yeah.
They said, well, they sent about 30 Special Forces guys to the armor school, and this is my assumption, they wanted us to get a little armor polish, because we were all rough and ready Special Forces guys.
Yeah.
They wanted us to learn how to eat with the right spoon or something. So we all went to the armor school and graduated, but not the top of the class, I might add. And from there I was, actually I got engaged while I was there, got married in the summer of '65, and I went off to Munich, Germany, to the 24th Division, to the 21st Infantry, where I commanded a company and then became the S3. And they sent us, where did they send us? To Berlin, on a reinforcing mission. The battalion went to Berlin 2 days before my brand new wife arrived in Germany. She didn't know anything about anything.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the Army being what it was, they took care of her. We spent Christmas together in Berlin. I came back unknown to my wife, and if she ever sees this tape, it'll be somewhat of a surprise to her. I volunteered for Vietnam for a third tour, and this was a year tour. I was the last infantry captain in the 24th Division, and they didn't want to turn me loose, but I sent a 1049 in, and sure enough got assigned to Vietnam. Spent a month on leave here in Rockingham County, went back to Vietnam, and wearing my Green Beret with orders to the 1st Special Forces Group. And I got to the Reppel Depot at Tonson Newton and said, "You're going to become an MP company commander." And I said, "I don't know anything about the MPs. I don't want to know anything about the MPs. I'm an infantryman. I'm a Special Forces guy. I eat snakes." And they said, "Tough." Well, I went to the major above it. This was a captain talking to another captain, and I said, "Oh, the hell with you. I'm going to your boss." I went to the major. He turned me down. I went to the lieutenant colonel. He turned me down. So I ended up an MP company commander in the 1st Signal Brigade. And I hated it. Let me just, that's the one tour I didn't like.
Where were you based?
In Saigon. The 1st Signal Brigade had not yet moved out to Long Binh. Long Binh.
Okay.
So we were in Saigon, but I had a platoon in Saigon, a platoon in Hue, and a platoon somewhere else that I can't remember right this minute. What was the big base up in 2nd Corps? Nha Trang.
2nd Nha Trang,
Nha
yeah,
Trang.
okay.
So I had a platoon in each one of those places, and I'd have to travel. I spent a week with each platoon.
Uh-huh.
So I was on, and then 2 weeks in Saigon. And the Light Infantry Brigade, the
199.
199th showed up, and Colonel Red Ryder, General Red Ryder was the boss. So I went down to see him and I said, "Please, I'll do anything you want, but I got to get out of the MPs." He said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want a rifle company." He said, "Absolutely. I've got two captains who have refused command." So he traded those 2 captains to the MPs for me. And I ended up with Echo Company, 1st of the 2nd Infantry, the Old Guard.
Uh-huh.
And I commanded that for 9 months. Picked up Purple Heart and a few other odds and ends. And came back to the States. Was assigned to Fort Jackson, where I was the 4th Brigade S3. got to meet General Hollingsworth. Did either one of you do Hollingsworth? He was,
Talking about Bill Hollingsworth?
no, this was, we call him Holly. Maybe it was William Hollingsworth. He was the Major General, he's post commander at Jackson, and I had to brief him every Friday afternoon.
Do you know where he went to school? Was he a West Pointer or was he?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M.
He had graduated in World War II from Texas A&M and was actually one of Patton's platoon leaders.
Yeah.
And he modeled himself after Patton. He was real foul-mouthed, real hard-headed, fire people in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But if he liked you, he liked you. And I was the fourth briefer from our brigade. And I quickly learned, you just tell him, I don't know, General. I'll find out, but I don't know. If you tried to bullshit him, he'd fire you. Even though you didn't work for him, you worked for the brigade commander.
Right.
But he had each day one of the brigades briefed him, and I always happened to be on Friday afternoons. So I never left early work. Work early, I'll tell you. But I got to know the general pretty well. And when my time was up in Fort Jackson, I requested assignment to Alaska. I was tired of the jungle. I definitely didn't want to go to the Pentagon, so I sent to Alaska.
Well, by then you had to be a major.
Yes,
All right.
I was a major.
Did you have to go to command and?
Oh, yeah, I did go to C&GS, but I went there later.
Okay.
I went to Alaska and was assigned to the Northern Warfare Training Center as the post S3. And I was happily enjoying myself. By then we had a son, and the three of us had a really good time there. And General Hollingsworth all of a sudden got assigned from Fort Jackson to command U.S. Army Alaska, got his 3rd star. And he was commander of U.S. Army Alaska. And he arrived there in Alaska on a Monday, and he started a tour of all the posts. We were at Fort Greeley, and he was, of course, assigned to Fort Richardson. And on a Friday, I guess Fridays are my either lucky or unlucky days, he showed up at Fort Greeley, and they tapped me to brief him since I said I knew him and I knew how he liked to brief him. And I went through the whole briefing about what Fort Greeley did. It was the alternate command posting in a war for Alaska and all these things. What we did there, the training was done and so forth. And finished up about 4 o'clock. It was putting all my easels and everything away. And his aide came down and said, "General wants to see you." My immediate thought was, oh crap. What have I done now?
Yeah.
So I walked into the general and reported, and he said, "How you like it up here, Ferguson?" And I said, "I like it really, really well, sir. I'm enjoying myself up here." He said, "You want to be the Ranger Company commander?" I said, "Well, sir, I'm not a Ranger graduate." He said, "Oh, bullshit. I know you. I know your record in Vietnam. You want to be the Ranger Company commander?" I said, "Yes, sir."
Absolutely.
So report Monday morning in Fort Richardson and form the Ranger Company. I said, "Sir, can I have a week to move? I got a little baby. Baby was hardly a year old." He said, "All right, I'll give you 1 week. Will you be there?" And so I was transferred to Fort Richardson and became the first company commander and the originator of the Company O 75th Infantry, which had an Arctic Ranger. And that picture that you saw of me, you have of me, is taken just before we jumped up on the North Pole. Loved that. Had the company for a year, almost 2 years. Loved the job. Wonderful thing. When I left there, I was assigned to VMI as an ROTC assignment.
Yeah.
And at VMI, I was exec of the ROTC detachment, and I was the token Citadel guy at VMI.
Yeah.
And Citadel has a token VMI guy.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that assignment. It was as close to a civilian assignment as I ever had when I was in the military. And we lived there, we were there 3 years. And General Hollingsworth, Sergeant Major, became the Sergeant Major of the Army.
Mm-hmm.
He came there to speak, and I got to talk to him a little bit. And he said, have you been to CGS? I said, no, I haven't yet, but I'm sure I'll get there someday.
Yeah.
Well, then I got orders to command General Staff School, went to Fort Leavenworth, was there the 9 months, assigned to Forces Command in Atlanta, Fort McPherson. Made the command I was there a year. Made the command list and was assigned to Fort Stewart as the commander of the 2nd Battalion, 21st Infantry.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that the 21st Infantry was sort of my home then, because I'd commanded a company there. I'd been in the S3 in the 1st of the 21st. Now I was the 2nd of the 21st. Did 2 years in command there. Ran across a brigade commander who we didn't get along, so I knew I was never going to be a full colonel. So I asked to be reassigned to Alaska. I was a commandant of the Northern Warfare Training Center for 3 years, and retired. And came here. Came here after a year after retirement.
When you were with Special Forces, did your career advisor tell you to get the hell out if you wanted?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the same thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, you're not going to make anything above major. You'll be lucky to be a half colonel. You know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's exactly what they told me.
Yeah.
When I got back from my third tour to Vietnam, I'm sitting at the bar at Fort Jackson Officers Club, and another major comes in, and we got to talking. I said, hey, what, have you been to Vietnam? No, I haven't been to Vietnam. I said, really? I said, what have you been doing? He said, I've been sitting in Panama having a ball for the last 5 years. The next morning I took vacation, or took leave.
Yeah.
Drove up the infantry branch and said, you assign me to Vietnam one more time before this guy goes, and I'm going to come and see you. And that's when they gave me, look, the reason you're not still in Special Forces is because your career is practically blighted as it is, you know, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But, well, I would have liked to have made full colonel and general or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't worth being a politician, because I'm not a politician. I'm the furthest thing from a politician, even though my family, my mother's a Hunt, Jim Hunt, the governor.
Yeah.
Her brother was Speaker of the House.
Mm-hmm.
They're all politicians, but I'm not.
Well, you hit 06, you're in politics all of a sudden.
Surely are.
And,
So 05 was fine.
yeah.
And I loved every assignment I had, with except for that MP assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And making the same thing when I was here at Oak Ridge, turning civilians into soldiers,
Mm-hmm.
or civilians into cadets,
Mm-hmm.
or my last job, civilians into law enforcement officers,
Mm-hmm.
has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
It's an old Special Forces stigma. You're a teacher,
Yeah.
period.
Mhm.
You know? And yeah, that sort of runs through your whole
It does.
career, you know?
And so I had a wonderful career. Have had a wonderful retirement from the Army. I had 20 years in the law enforcement business.
Yeah.
And I retired in '89. And I just do what I want to now, which is very little.
That's right. Do you do any writing?
I do not. My youngest son is getting his PhD in history at Chapel Hill, and he does all the writing for the Ferguson family.
I see. Okay. So you sent your son here,
My oldest son.
your oldest son, here to Oak Ridge.
He was, I'd been here by then, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Uh-huh.
And maybe 3 years. And he was falling through the cracks in the public school.
Uh-huh.
At that time, Al was a quiet boy, didn't cause any trouble, just cruised along, and,
Mhm.
and he just fell through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him if he wanted to come here, and he, like me, loves the military.
Yeah.
And so he came here and as a day student. I couldn't afford the tuition for a boarding student. And just absolutely loved it and did well, ended up as battalion exec. Left here, went to North Georgia, was there 2 years and got really ill, very, very sick. It was a mono that went bad, I guess you'd say. Once, and he was out of school for almost a year. Once he recovered, he went to Western Carolina and finished there. And he enlisted and was in something called, let's see, long range surveillance units. We used to call them LRPs.
LRPs, yeah.
They call them long range surveillance units now. And then when he got out, he went to rookie school and became a High Point police officer about 15 or 16 years ago, 16 years ago. And now lieutenant at High Point. The middle son, who taught here as a part-time teacher in math, he's working in Colorado, runs the YMCA camp of the Rockies. Oh, he gets ski and whitewater raft. He got the best job in the world and loves it.
Yeah.
And then the youngest son, who has taught a couple of years at community colleges, is finishing up his PhD this year at Citadel.
Okay. And where are you living now?
I have a farm in Wentworth, which is in the middle of Rockingham County. I've got 113 acres. And I raise trees.
Your wife's still alive, I said.
Yeah. We've been married 46 and a half years.
You know, Bill Simon was raising pigs down in, I can't remember, well, I want to say New Hanover County or someplace down towards, Fayetteville. Did you ever get to see him down there? I mean, you two farmers.
Yeah, no, I never did. Did you ever know a guy named Marichek?
Marichek.
He's serving life for murder now here in North Carolina. He was a Czechoslovakian.
Yeah.
Came over the
Over the wall.
over the wall and all that, and was really good. And special forces guy. He was one of the ones that went to the armor school with me. He had strike force. He commanded a couple strike forces in his tours in Vietnam. But he killed his first wife in order to marry his second wife when he got caught.
Expediency, I suppose. Yeah. Remember Dick Winters? Did you ever know that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know him personally, but I know
Yeah.
who you're talking about.
Yeah, I served with him. We did combined studies, but they were. I don't know. We had so many lifers that these guys were Mustang. Nick Rowe.
Nick Rowe.
Absolutely.
Nick Rowe.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nick and I were lieutenants together in separate A teams, but we're all in the same B team.
Yeah.
And we went over at the same time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he got captured.
Yeah.
But I never saw him after that.
Never did. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. Back in the day. Unbelievable. Okay. Anything else? Tell me about the period when you were the instructor at the police academy. If you would, give me a little more detail about that.
When I left Oak Ridge and was hired by Rockingham Community College, I was hired to work in the continuing education department.
Right.
And they did not have, at that time, any police training for Rockingham County. And Rockingham County has over 200 officers, counting the sheriff's departments, the 5 little towns, and the highway patrol, and whoever else is there. And they were having to go outside the county. So, and I was hired to be a business trainer. what I know about business can actually be written on the head of a pen, and with space left over. So I made a proposal that we start what is known as, in North Carolina, as BLET, Basic Law Enforcement Training, BLET, at RCC, because all of the Rockingham County people were having to go to Greensboro, or, well, I think Greensboro is the only other close place offering it, maybe Davidson Community College. So I got an okay to do that, and we formed it, and I became the director. In order to do the kind of job that I have to do, I went through a BLET myself at Greensboro, at Guilford Technical Community College. And then I came back and started my own. I went to a night school because I was still working full-time at the college. We became, and I know I'm bragging now, but it's the truth, we became one of the top 6 schools out of the 89 school BLETs in North Carolina. We were in the top 6. The only reason we weren't higher than, I don't know where we were in the top 6, but I don't think we were number 1 because we were a poor school. We didn't have some of the nice equipment some of the more financially able schools did, but we turned out a really good product. And something like 65% of the officers in Rockingham County were graduates of my BLET. At the same time, I was working as a reserve officer, first in Eden as a reserve officer for the Sheriff's Department, in order to keep my skills knowledgeable, because I felt, and I felt the same way in the military, you can't lead if you haven't been there. And we would graduate 2 classes a year, a day school, which would go from 8 to 5 days a week, and a night school, which went from 6 to 10, 5 days a week, and 8 to 5 every Saturday. And depending on the weather, if we had like snow or something and missed a day, then we would go on Sundays. It's a state certified school. State of North Carolina certifies it, inspects it, have a state curriculum that you must teach. You have to use state certified instructors, which I became one. It's a lot more than a college classroom. You just don't walk in there and say, okay, I think today we'll talk about forensics. You don't do that at all. You have a specific curriculum. You have topics to teach. You have to test on those topics. And at the end of the school, the state comes down and gives all of your students a test that you're not allowed to see. And if they don't pass that test, they don't become police officers, even though they've spent 17 to 20 weeks going through the course. Again, it was something I really enjoyed doing. Enjoyed the one for it's paramilitary. And I was just as happy as, we made our students wear uniforms and march. We ran them in PT and in formation. My number 2 man was a TET graduate, so to speak. Been an EMP in TET, but he had not worked for me. Yeah. And then he was a highway patrolman for 25 years and retired. And so the 2 of us ran a very strict, very tight school. We enjoyed it. We turned out a good product. And but after 20 years, yeah, it's time for me to retire. I was 70 by that time.
Well, but still functioning. It's still
yeah. And my number 2 guy took it over. Yeah. And I just got an email from the Burlington Police Department saying they had interviewed 3 of this year's graduates, and they were so impressed with them they stood head and shoulders above the other people that they interviewed, and they would most likely hire them.
That's great. Okay, let me revert back here. I have a quick question. When did you go to jump school when you were at the Citadel? Did you go to that summer program?
No. After I went to jump school and basic officers course at the same time.
Yeah. And Benny. Well, sir, anything else you'd like to add? You know, this is an educational thing, you know, where we're going to draw from it. It will be archived and may be posted on the alumni website. You know, so that alums that know you can come back and watch this interview.
Well, as I said during the middle of this interview, I think Oak Ridge was the turning point of my life.
Yeah.
It provided me not only with a good basic education, but it provided me with a basic leadership training and education that made my professional career what it was. And in that sense, I certainly don't mind you using excerpts from this, maybe not some of the swearing I did. But you can use things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for you too, because I really want Oak Ridge to succeed. Unfortunately, I don't have $1 million to give you, or even
Sure.
Even 100,000. If I had it, I'd give it to the school. And having a connection of my oldest son graduating here, my middle son is a part-time teacher here, and all of my family would come over and watch the parades when I was assigned here, or was hired here as a dean, associate dean. So I'm glad, I'm just really happy to see what's happened.
Yeah.
Because I haven't been back on campus more than once or twice in the last 20-some years.
Yeah. Well, it's a long time to be away.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I drive by here.
Yeah.
Very often,
Uh-huh.
because I've got a one-day-a-week job at Greensburg Gunworks down here.
Yeah. How did you manage that?
I don't get paid money, I get paid in guns.
Yeah, I understand. Well, we're just tickled to death to have you in. We really are, and it's guys like you that come back really add a lot to our archives, and you know, it's one of those things that when we're all dead and gone, at least there's going to be a record here, and your great-great-grandchildren that you'll never know will be able to see these tapes and these interviews, and it's really fascinating, and so we appreciate it very much.
Sure. I'm glad to do it.
Really delighted to have you, and I think we'll wrap it up now.
Okay.
And go and get a cup of coffee or get some food.
12:30, my goodness.
Yeah, it is. Okay.